Hi, let's talk about site publishing. After all our hard work at the end of the day, let's say we'd like to take our website files and we'd like to upload them to a remote server. That way we can preview the files or we can share the files with the world from our domain. So of course this requires going out and purchasing a domain name and web hosting space from a particular company. And I've suggested a few companies that I've had good experiences with and that have some reasonable deals in the 0.0 setup section in Module 1. So you can check out those companies if you don't already have this set up. And really anywhere that you can find a domain name provider and web hosting is fine to use. Aside from being able to upload our files so the world can see it, this will also be helpful in this class so that you can post your projects and get feedback from other people because they'll be able to just go to your website domain to check out what you've been working on. So to get started, we're going to go ahead and make sure that we have written down the 3 pieces of information that we got from our hosting provider, and that would be our FTP address, our username or our user login, and our password. Typically, most hosting companies will email you this information when you first sign up. And if you weren't emailed this, it's possible that you might have to call them or contact them to get this information, or they may have given you a username and password to log into a control panel at their website. And usually once you log into your control panel, somewhere in there you'll be able to find this information. And once you find that information, you want to write it down. And then the next thing we want to do is we're going to launch this application called FileZilla, which is going to be our preferred FTP client. So I'm going to go ahead and launch FileZilla. And this may look a little bit different on Windows. This is on my Mac here, but it's pretty much the same for both. You can see that this screen here has all these different windows. Up here on the top we have a window that's going to be the request and response information that the server's giving us. So it will respond back like cannot connect, bleh, or it'll be like connection successful, stuff like that. And down here it'll actually tell you the status of a file. If you're copying it, you'll see a little loading bar to let you know if the file is copied. And in the center here we have split into the left and right side, and the left side is your local file system. So these are all the files on your computer, just in the same as if you were using Finder or your file browser. And then over here on the right side, which is actually blank right now because we're not connected to any servers, this would actually be the file structure on your server that you're connecting to. So you'll be able to see your local files and your server's files. And we literally can just drag and drop files from the left side to the right side to copy from our local files to our remote server. So this is actually the equivalent of uploading, is if you click and drag, just in the same way that you can click and drag files around your computer, you'll just click and drag your website files and drop them onto the remote server. And additionally, you can also click over here on the remote server and you can drag and drop files from the remote server to your local computer to download those files. So you can upload and download simply by dragging and dropping. So we're not connected to any server. That'll be the first step. We have to connect to our server. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and go up to the File drop-down menu, and we're going to select Site Manager. And here under this little tab that says My Sites, this is where you can create all of the different settings for different servers that you connect to. So these are just different servers that I've connected to in the past. I'm going to go ahead and create a new site. I'm going to click this button here, New Site, and it wants me to name it here. It's currently called New Site, but I'm going to give it a better name. ZHW Shoes is the name of this site. And then if I click on that there, I can see that I can put in some settings, and it will remember these settings for this particular site. So first thing I need here is my host, and in order to connect to my FTP server, I just put in the domain name that I'm connecting to, which is jonathangrover.com. And of course this will be different for you, And you'll have to check with your hosting provider to know what you're supposed to put here to connect via FTP. For the protocol here, you can select between FTP, which stands for File Transfer Protocol, or SFTP, which is Secure File Transfer Protocol. So SFTP may be required. Certain hosts or certain servers require that you connect with a secured connection. My provider does not. I'm just going to use regular File Transfer Protocol, which is pretty common. I'm going to leave the port blank. Sometimes you have to put in a certain port number here, but most of the time you can leave that blank. Under encryption, I'm just going to say use plain FTP. And here under logon type, I'm going to change this to normal. So I'm going to change it from anonymous to normal. And here where it says user, this is where you put your login name or your username. So this is where it's helpful to have this stuff written down somewhere. And then you're going to want to put in your password. Fortunately, you guys can't see mine because it's little dots. And then there's a few other tabs. I'm not going to fill out anything else, but just to let you know what these are. If you go to the Advanced tab, you can click Browse and you can select a default local directory. And what that will do is whenever you connect to this site, it will automatically load a certain folder from your computer here in the local files. Sometimes that's nice. It can speed up the process so you don't have to search around as long. And you can do the same thing for your server by setting up a default remote directory. So that way every time you connect to the server, it will go into the specific folder you want to go into. Sometimes when you connect to a server, you'll just see a blank directory and you can just drag your files right into it. Other times there's all sorts of folders in there. You might see one that says logs that just has like data from your hosting company in it, like analytic data about who visits the site, things like that, information about how often you copied files and on what date. And then sometimes there's another folder that says public, which is where you would copy your website files, or other times it's called HTTP, or maybe even an HTML folder. So if you see a lot of strange folders and you're not sure which folder to copy your files into, you're going to want to ask your hosting company about that. So for now, I'm just going to leave these blank, but the main thing you have to have is on this general tab, and that's your FTP host, your username, and your password. Okay. After I get that all set up, I can click the OK button to go ahead and save that. Okay. And now anytime I want to visit this site, I can always just go up to File, Site Manager, and I can see that it remembers that information. Whenever I click on the name of my project here, ZHW Shoes, it will have all that information there. So I can go ahead and click on my site and click Connect here. And you can see up here, these are all the commands and responses from the server. Fortunately, mine said directory listing successful here when I connected. Now, if you see some red text here that says something like error, blah, 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 it'll usually have a number and some type of error message. It usually will tell you things like username or password incorrect, which will let you know you're obviously using the wrong password. Or it might, have some sort of strange error message that you just don't know what it means. My advice is if you get an error message and it's not clear why it's not working, highlight the error message and cop to your hosting company's tech support, or call your hosting company and read them the error message, and they might be able to tell you why it's not connecting. Fortunately, mine was able to connect. When you connect, you might not see this complicated of a file structure. I actually have all these crazy folders in here. But at any rate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder specifically to put this this website in. If you just wanted it to be in your domain name, like if I just wanted to go to this domain name, I would just drag it into that root folder. But I actually want to create this as kind of like a hidden site project in a folder that like only I know about. So I created a folder here called ZHW Shoes. So I could actually go to like jonathangrover.com/ZHW Shoes and see the files there, for example. Let me actually remove this directory so I can recreate it again and show you how. If I right click, I can say delete. Be careful doing this, by the way. You can't undo it. And we'll say yes. And now that one's gone. Okay. It's actually removing the files there. It takes a while. So if I want to create a new directory in here inside the window and say create directory, and it's showing me where it's going to put the directory, and I'm going to call this one ZHW shoes because I'm trying to make a little hidden directory here. And then I'm going to say OK. I should be able to find that directory in here somewhere now. There it is. If you ever want to go into a folder, you just double click on the folder. If you ever want to go out a folder, you just double click on this little dot dot folder. There'll always be a folder at the top called dot dot. And if you double click that, it'll take you out of the folder. So I'm actually going to go back into that folder right here. Cool. And what I want to do then is I want to select all these files over here. And one way you can do that is you can click on individual files and you can hold shift and select them like that. You can also select all files by saying Command A on Mac or by saying Control A on Windows. And then you can, once they're all selected like this blue, you can just click on any one of them and it'll grab all of them. And we can just drag this over here and we can drop it. So by dragging and dropping from my local side to my remote server there, I can move all those files in there. And up here at the top, this little bar here is showing me where it's copying those to. This is telling me if it's copying them successful. And down here in this window, when you copy a file, you'll actually see a progress bar will show you how long it's taking to move that file. For example, if I drag the images over here again, it asks me, it says these files already exist. Would you like to overwrite them? So I'll say always use this action and say OK. And down here you can see it's overriding those files or updating those image files now. All right, and once it's done, it will say file transfer successful. On this tab, it says there were 39 successful transfers. And if I click that, it'll tell me which files, like that, and where they were copied to. If you see anything here under failed transfers, that means something didn't copy. And you can like right click on it and you can like tell it to retry copying it or something like that. Queued files are the ones that should be like currently copying. All right, at any rate, you can see these are mirror images now. This is my local files, and this is my remote server, which has all those files, mirror images of each other there. Okay. Since there's an index page here, I can just find this folder, and it will show me these files on the web now. So I'm going to open up my browser, and I will go to my domain name. And had I just thrown it into my default directory there for my domain name, I could just go to the domain name itself. I already have a website here in the root directory, so I'm going to instead go to my ZHW_shoes folder, like that, and there up pops my website. So you should be able to upload your files to your server, and if you don't want the world to see them, you want to hide it a bit, you can always create a directory and throw the files into there. And if you copy and paste this directory into your project page on Skillshare, then other people can go and see the files and give you feedback and things like that.